Hello everyone. So in the last video we were looking at Charvaka's epistemology, and we saw that how they believe that perception is the only valid source of knowledge, and they rejected inference and testimony as a valid source of knowledge. Now the author has made some comparisons with Shunyavad Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, as I had already pointed this out, that he will keep doing this over the entire book, and we will be reading Advaita Vedanta chapter at the very end. So it is important to get at least some workable knowledge of Advaita Vedanta so that we can make sense of the things what he is really saying. When you will be reading it the second time, you will get these things in a much better way. So the purpose of this lecture is to provide that workable knowledge of Advaita Vedanta. Okay, then let's get into that. So Advaita Vedanta talks about Brahm. Now what this Brahm is said to be the ultimate reality. Okay, so there are two words, ultimate and reality. Now what reality is? Reality is sum total of all things that there are. So if you go by your common sense understanding, we live in a world, we live on a planet. This planet is in a solar system. Our solar system is in a galaxy. This galaxy is in a universe, and there might be more than one universes. We don't know, but whatever there is, everything taken together is what reality is. Then, what do we mean by the word ultimate? The ultimate means the foundational reality. For example, in today's viewpoint, we have some basic particles like uh, atoms are also subdivisible, and there are a lot of basic particles like mesons, muons. I don't know exactly what they are, but you get it right. The basic fundamental foundational thing that is from which everything else is made up of or depends on is what ultimate reality is. Now, according to Advaita Vedanta, ultimate reality is called Brahman or Brahm. I don't know how it is pronounced. Maybe it is pronounced as Brahm only. So, in physics, we have that model, general particle model, about what reality is. What Shankaracharya talks about the ultimate reality is that it is pure consciousness, that it is pure subject, and that it is devoid of all attributes. What do we mean by these terms? So, we had talked about consciousness before. That consciousness is being aware of some object or some mental state or anything for that matter. So if you see a table in front of you, you have a consciousness of table in your mind. Now this consciousness is known as empirical consciousness. What empirical means is that it is derived from experience. As this is derived from experience of a table that is out there in the world, hence it is empirical consciousness. But there is also a term pure consciousness. What do we mean by pure consciousness? So if we abstract all the sense data or anything empirical for the matter of fact from empirical consciousness, then what we are left with is called pure consciousness. So you were looking at a table, so you gathered a lot of sense data, and using that sense data, you form the consciousness of the table. But if you abstract all that sense data from the empirical consciousness, then the thing that is left, it is pure consciousness. How can we make sense of that? Okay, one thing you will realize that consciousness is in the subject. The subject is the person or the thing which knows, which does the knowing. And object is the thing which is known. This is the basic distinction between subject and object. So, for example, if I am seeing a table, I am the subject and the table is the object. This you will agree with that consciousness is in the subject. Consciousness is in us. This is the general belief, general religious belief, or say general in both Vedic tradition and Christian thought as well. And the object which we know, which is is outside, it's there in the world, or it is some mental state, or it is something other than us. So, now this empirical consciousness presupposes pure consciousness, because only when there will be a subject, only when there will be a consciousness and a subject, only then that subject can know an object. So the empirical consciousness is something which is derived from pure consciousness. And whenever you remove everything empirical from the empirical consciousness, you are left with pure consciousness. Okay, in scientific view, this pure consciousness might be material. So in scientific view, we have some pure consciousness is in our brain, which is there without any sense data, without anything empirical. And how it is formed, it is not explained right now, but it might be formed from matter only. There might be some kind of chemical reaction which might be leading to formation of pure consciousness. Charvaka also has such kind of view that the pure consciousness, or for that matter, we will talk of only consciousness right now, that consciousness is formed of matter. But a lot of schools like Advaita Vedanta, the pure consciousness is said to be not material. Consciousness in itself is given a primacy and it is distinguished from matter. Rather, the matter itself is said to be derived from this pure consciousness. So, you see how they have turned things upside down. In materialism, they think that matter is the basic fundamental reality, and it is from this matter that consciousness forms. Whereas in Advaita Vedanta and other idealistic schools, we will talk about idealism in a bit. Consciousness is the primary thing, and matter is what which is derived. Okay, so also Advaita Vedantism is a monistic view. What is meant by monism? We saw the problem of duality in our introductory lecture. Dualism means that there are two basic types of reality. So monism will mean that there is only one basic type of reality. So one kind of monism can be that there is only matter, and one kind of monism can be that there is only consciousness. Consciousness is basic and everything else is derived from consciousness. So, so this view that everything is derived from consciousness, that everything is spiritual, that reality at the base is spiritual, and even the material is derived from the spiritual aspect. This is known as idealism. So Advaita Vedanta is an idealistic school. It has an idealistic metaphysics, whereas Charvak school, as we have already discussed, has a materialistic metaphysics. We also talked about dualism before. In dualism, we have two basic aspects of reality. So in dualism, it is believed that both matter and consciousness are separate, independent, and basic forms of realities. We also saw the problem of duality, that how two basic, fundamental, independent things can interact. Also, we will also come across pluralism in Indian philosophy, which means more than two independent, different forms of realities exist. Okay, like we did in materialism, we saw that materialism has a common sense meaning in language in the present world, and it has a metaphysical meaning. Similarly, idealism also has a common sense meaning in our world, the belief that the perfect life situation, etc., can be achieved even when this is not very likely. Or other definition is that of political idealism is that priority of ideals, principles, values, and goals over concrete realities. So, this is what we think of idealism in the present world. But I will not go into the details, but this meaning is also derived from the metaphysical idealism, which Plato came about which Plato was the first to come about with, right? So there is a difference between common sense meaning and the meaning in metaphysics, which you should be aware of. Okay, so this is what we meant by ultimate reality is Brahm, which is pure consciousness. Pure subject is the same thing because consciousness can be present only in a subject, the knowing subject. So Brahm is the pure subject as well, and it is devoid of all attributes. So this reality, Brahm, it doesn't have any attributes. This pure consciousness thing is not an attribute, but it is an essence of Brahm itself. What is the difference between essence and attribute? So, essence means the thing is that, right? For example, if we say that essence of humans is humanity, so it doesn't mean that it is our attribute. It doesn't mean that it is our property. We are made of humanity, or we embody humanity, right? So there is a difference between attribute and essence. And Advaita Vedanta says that Brahm is pure consciousness, that is its essence, and it doesn't have any kind of attributes. So for example, in a lot of philosophical schools, God is thought of to be the ultimate reality, and God generally has a lot of attributes. Like God is all powerful, God is benevolent, God is kind, and God is omnipotent, God is omniscient. All those are attributes. Brahm in Advaita Vedanta doesn't have any kind of these attributes. It is totally devoid of all the attributes. Then you will say that if all the reality is Brahm and it doesn't have all the attributes, how can we explain this world of plurality? We around us see a lot of objects, we around us see a lot of material objects, and we say that this object has that property. But if the ultimate reality has no property or no attributes, how come these attributes come into being? That in Advaita Vedanta is explained using Maya. What is this Maya now? So Maya is Brahm, Brahm's potency. It is Brahm's power. Now the relationship between Brahm and Maya is very mystical. So you will understand what the relationship exactly is in a bit, and it is on this relationship that the name of this school of Vedanta, Advaita, is given. But before that, you will see Shankaracharya talking in a lot of metaphors to explain people about what the relationship between Brahm and Maya is. Okay, so Maya is the potency of Brahm, and you can consider for now it to be just kind of a covering, kind of a filter. The filter through which when Brahm is seen, it appears as qualified Brahm or Ishwar. Now, what is qualified Brahm? Qualified Brahm means Brahm with attributes, Brahm with qualities. Qualified means having certain qualities. So, as we saw that Brahm is devoid of all attributes, but it has a power, a potency, Maya, and when seen through that filter, that that lens, Brahm appears as to have some qualities, and this is called Ishwar. Now, this Ishwar is the general God that you think of, the general God which is creator, preserver, and destroyer of this world, which is omnipotent, which is omniscient. All this thing is only after Brahm, the ultimate reality, is seen through the lens of Maya. The level of reality at this level is called Paramarthic reality, Paramarthic level. Okay, so the top level is called Paramarthic. At this, only Brahm exists and it is devoid of all the qualities. The second level, the level in which Maya individualizes Brahm or qualifies Brahm, that level is called Vyavharik level of reality. Okay, Shankaracharya also talks about one more level, which is Pratibhasik level of reality, which is the dream state. We don't have to go into it right now. We will see when we will be studying Advaita Vedanta. So in this way, we have different levels of reality, and the ultimate reality is Brahm. And the ultimate level of reality is called Paramarthic. Okay, so here we have explained what God is, what Maya is. Now another thing is Jeev. What is Jeev? Jeev is a subject. Like every human is a subject. Jeev is something which has consciousness. That is, it is a subject. Along with it, it's also an object. So Jeev is a subject-object complex like humans. So we humans have a subjective side, that is our consciousness. We also have an objective side because our bodies are material. So we are a subject complex. Now in this, the subject element is pure consciousness, the pure consciousness of Brahm, and the object element is caused by this Maya only. Now the Maya is also called avidya. They are used interchangeably by Shankaracharya. So when so this is what a jeev is. It is both material and spiritual. Now let's come to the details of what Maya is. As you might have seen that this might look a bit confusing, that if Brahm is everything and anything that there is in the world, how come this Maya comes from? And what is the relationship between Brahm and Maya? So Shankaracharya says that Brahm is not pure illusion. It is positive wrong knowledge. So what is the difference between pure illusion and positive wrong knowledge? So by positive wrong knowledge means it is there, it is something existent. Whereas by pure illusion will mean that it has no existence at all. That is the difference between these two terms. And it is also said to be indescribable in our normal categories of intellect. So when we are living in this Vyavharik level of reality as subject object complex, we have certain categories of intellect. Our intellect has certain limitations, certain boundaries, which follows the rules and laws of this world. And in those rules or those laws of world, we cannot explain Maya. Why? Because Maya belongs to some other level of reality. Our thoughts cannot go to that level of reality, so we cannot describe it. It is indescribable. So how do we know about Maya and all these things? We know because it is written in Vedas, and Vedas are thought to be authoritative, and they contain knowledge, right? They from where Vedas come. I will not go into that right now, but because there is this given in Vedas, we come to know all of this. It was given in Vedas, then the Vedas were extended in the Upanishads, and from Upanishads only Shankaracharya has interpreted his Advaita Vedanta. Okay, so we have already talked that Maya is not like hare's horn, which means it is not non-existent. What is hare's horn? So this is a general term used in Indian philosophy. A hare does not have a horn, right? So it is used to describe something non-existent. So Maya is not non-existent. So what exactly is Maya? So it is neither existent because Brahman is the only reality. So how can Maya be existent? It is not non-existent. It is not non-existent because the world appears to us because of Maya only. If there was no Maya, Brahm would not be seen as this world. Jagat is world only, right? Nor both, because anything cannot be both existent and non-existent. So this line says that Maya is neither existent nor non-existence nor both. Now these are our categories of thought in our empirical world. So in this subject-object complex that we are right now, we think of things in form of existence, non-existence, or both. We think in these terms, but Maya is something beyond our comprehension. So we cannot explain Maya using these terms of language. That's the basic crux of it. Okay, so Shankaracharya also gives certain metaphors so that we can understand better what he's trying to say. So Maya, he says, is like a superposition. So if you see a shell lying on the floor, you sometimes mistake it as silver. So how he explains it is that shell on shell, silver is superimposed. How is it superimposed? It is superimposed because of Maya. Maya is what is causing us to see shell as silver. When the right knowledge arises, this error vanishes. So right now we don't have the right knowledge. We are in ignorance, and that is why we are seeing shell as silver. But as soon as right knowledge arises on us, all this error vanishes and we start seeing shell as shell. Right? So shell and silver, which will be shell will be Brahm and silver will be this Jagat or this world. The relationship between them is of non-difference. Now, this non-difference is just to emphasize that in our empirical language, in our empirical categories of intellect, we cannot explain the relationship between Maya and Brahma. And that is why this new word has been thought of, which is non-difference, which is also called Tadatmya. So this is the relationship between Maya and Brahm. This is the relationship between shell and silver. This is the relationship between Jagat and Brahm as well. Okay, so you might think that if our world is because of ignorance, as soon as we will get knowledge, then we'll realize what true reality is and that this thing is not reality. So to But that is not what Shankaracharya wanted to say. He says that this level is phenomenal reality. Because we are at this level right now, it is the thing which is real. But when we'll get the knowledge, then this thing will become unreal. For now, it is the only reality we know about. It is the only reality, and we should live by its laws and work by its laws. It is not an illusion, it is a practical reality. So there are levels of reality, right? This world is not an illusion, it is a practical reality, but there is a reality which is a level above this reality. And it is because of ignorance, Jeev doesn't realize the unity it has with Brahm. When Jeev realizes through knowledge the essential unity, the liberation comes. Okay, so now here the metaphysics and the liberation and ethics is beautifully bounded together. So in Indian philosophy, you will see this across all the schools, that it is believed that first of all, Indian philosophies, in Indian philosophy, that time is cyclical. Okay, so and people are reborn. You know the general principle of karma, the theory of karma, that we sow what we reap, and because there is, when we die, there is some kind of karma remaining and we have not reaped it. That is because we are reborn again, and then the cycle goes on and on and on until all our karma is not reaped. And what causes that karma in the first place, we don't know that. Okay, so this will need some explanation. So say this is our lifespan. At all the places we accumulate some karma, and we reap this karma and the karma accumulated previously later in our life. When we are about to die, because all the karma is not reaped. Why is all karma not reaped? Because we are ignorant. See, the basic reason for reaping karma is that we are ignorant and we do things in ignorance. If we have the correct knowledge about this world, and about this reality, then we will stop reaping karma. But because we do not have right knowledge before we die, the karma will keep on accumulating, and that's why we will have to be born again to reap that karma. So this will be the second life. But say if in this life, say at this point, we attain the true knowledge. So after this point of time, any new karma will stop accumulating. And whatever karma we have in our bag, whatever karma is left, we will reap that in this amount of time. And as we will die, we will attain moksha or liberation. And we will not be reborn again. So it is knowledge. It is knowledge of reality which will cause us to stop accumulating karma and attain moksha. Also, you might think of that, okay, Brahm is the only reality. But why Brahm is the only reality? And because of the ignorance, we are in this state. Because of the ignorance, we have Jeev. Because of ignorance, we have Maya, we have Jeev, we have Jagat. All these things are because of ignorance. But where did this ignorance come from in the first place? Where did it come from? Because in the starting, you might think that there is Brahm, the ultimate reality. And so how did this all start? Where did ignorance come from that we are to today in this stage that we live in ignorance in the Vyavharik level of reality? So this thing is countered by an Indian philosophy by regressing this thing to infinity. Okay, so what they say is that you are here because in previous life you had done some karma, and in this previous life they will say that before that you had done some karma, and so on. So like this, they say that we do not know the first cause of why this come in place, but we know that it is infinitely back in the time. So that way, Indian philosophy kind of postpones the problem of how ignorance came in the first place. That problem doesn't arise because we have cyclical notion of time, and this is just regressed back into infinite time. Okay, then yeah, so because Shankaracharya says that there is practical reality, so empirical validity of all means of knowledge, whatever knowledge we attain at this level, it will have empirical validity, which means it will have validity at this level of reality. But from when we will reach the level of Brahma, when we will reach the Paramarthic level, then then what we are considering knowledge now, which is knowledge now, will not remain knowledge then, because we have transcended that level. We have gone beyond that. We now know what true reality is. So that is the basic understanding of Karma theory, basic understanding of Advaita Vedanta, and this metaphysical learning of Advaita Vedanta is very beautifully summarized in this verse of Upanishad, which says, Brahm Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva na para. It means that Brahm is the only reality, Jagat or world is an illusion, and Jeev and Brahm are not different. Okay, and this is only metaphysical. Oh, sorry, this is only metaphorical. So don't say that why you're saying that Jagat is illusion when above you were saying that it is practical reality. This is only metaphorical, and Shankaracharya has very thoroughly explained why the Vyavharik level of reality is a practical reality. Okay, now let's come to our text. Shunyavad Buddhism, you can for now think that it is exactly equivalent to Advaita Vedanta. For now, you can just make that assumption. So he says that it is interesting here to note that Shunyavad Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta have also rejected the ultimate validity of inference. Why they have rejected the ultimate validity of inference? Because from the level of Brahma, any kind of knowledge in this Vyavharik level of reality is not real, right? Because the only reality is Brahm. So inference, perception, everything is rejected at that level. So while Charvaka reject only inference and testimony, the Advaita Vedantins and Shunyavadins from the ultimate level will reject all the sources of knowledge. There has been a long controversy between Udayan, the logician, and Sri Harsha, the Vedantin, regarding the validity of inference, and, and Sri Harsha has denounced all attempts to prove the validity of inference. But there is a radical difference between Charvak view on the one hand and the Shunyavad and Vedanta view on the other. The Charvak accepts the validity of perception and thereby upholds the truth of means of valid knowledge, though he rejects all other means of knowledge as invalid. Okay, so that is self-explanatory. But the Shunyavadan and the Advaitavadan reject the ultimate validity of all means of knowledge as such, including perception, though they insist on empirical validity of all means of knowledge. Okay, this also I have already explained. The distinction between ultimate and empirical knowledge is unknown in Charvak. To accept the validity of perception and at the same time, from the same standpoint, to reject the validity of inference is a thoughtless self-contradiction. Okay, so Till here, we see the difference in point of view of Charvak and Advaita Vedanta and Shunyavadin. So, Advaita Vedanta and Shunyavadin, the author is saying, are correct because they are invalidating all the means of knowledge from the ultimate level, but at the empirical level, they accept all the valid means of knowledge, including inference and perception. But Charvak only reject inference while accept perception, and that he says is a contradiction. Why is it a contradiction? We'll see it in we'll see it now. So the crude means very simplistic, not thought of deeply. The crude Charvak position has been vehemently criticized by all systems of Indian philosophy, all of which have maintained the validity of at least perception and inference. So every school of philosophy has maintained that at least perception and inference both are true. Now, why it is important? Because perception and inference are intricately linked with each other. That will be explained now. To refuse the validity of inference from the empirical standpoint is to refuse to think and discuss. All thoughts, all discussions, all doctrines, all affirmations and denials, all proofs and disproofs are made possible by inference. The Charvaka view that perception is valid and inference is invalid is itself a result of inference. Okay, so whatever discussions we make, whatever doctrines we have, whatever thoughts we have, it all is through the language of, through the vehicle of language. It is only through language that we think, discuss, and do all kind of things. Now, language itself is based on inference. The inference that because we once decided that we will use these words for these meanings, we will always use these words for those same meanings. You see, so the use of language also is inferred. That's why without inference, no thought, no discussion, nothing is possible. So the Charvaka view that perception is valid and inference is invalid is itself a result of inference, right? Because language itself is a result of inference. The Charvaka can understand others only through inference and make others understand him only through inference, because they do it through the medium of language. Thoughts and ideas, not being material objects, cannot be perceived, they can only be inferred. Hence the self-refuted Charvaka position. Okay, so Charvaka have refuted their own position. How? Because they say that inference is not a means of knowledge, but they are themselves making an inference to explain to other people their knowledge claim. Hence, they are self-refuting their own position. You can understand self-refutation through this simple sentence: there is no truth. You are saying there is no truth, which means the truth of this sentence itself is questionable, and hence the very sentence which is making a knowledge claim is refuting itself. Such is the position of Charvaka as well. Perception itself, which is regarded as valid by Charvak, is often found untrue. Okay, so Charvaka used arguments like inference is not always true. We saw the problem of induction, that we go beyond our experience when we use induction, when we form some kind of laws. But same thing can be said about perception also, that our perception is not always true. We sometimes hallucinate. Examples like earth is flat but it is almost round. Such kind of examples show that perception can also be wrong. Right? Also, yeah, okay, then we perceive the disk of sun as of small size, but it is much bigger size than that of earth. So just by perception, this thing will become wrong. But we infer a lot of things because that sun is so far away from the earth, and our eyes function in certain way, and that is why we see things which are far away smaller, because the angle that they have in our eyes is lesser. So all those things, when you infer, then only you come to the correct knowledge. Through just perception, you will be at a wrong, you will come to a wrong conclusion. So such perceptual knowledge is contradicted by inference. Then last argument that he gives is that, moreover, pure perception in the sense of mere sensation cannot be regarded as a means of knowledge unless conception of thought has arranged into order and has given meaning and significance to loose threads of sense data. So this I have already talked about when we were talking about perception and how Indian schools of philosophy have thought of perception as. Okay, so where is that? Yeah, so perception in general, we have seen in the last video that it is divided into indeterminate perception and determinate perception. Indeterminate means just the sense data, and determinate means when we have conceptualized it, synthesized it. The knowledge that we have, like when we see the ball, the knowledge of ball comes only at this level after we have conceptualized things. And in this conceptualization, we make a lot of inferences, right? Just the sense, just perceiving the sense data, which happens in indeterminate perception, will not give us any knowledge. The Charvak cannot support his views without giving reasons which presuppose the validity of inference. Okay, this is self-explanatory. Okay, for this video we are done now. In the next video we will start looking at the metaphysics of Charvak school.